Hi guys, welcome to part two of the IndieCast. We
Yo,
decided to
Hola.
cut this into two because it's a bit easier to get. And this is a bit weird.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Continue. Yeah, no,
but
we,
yeah,
we, we just needed to take a break because we've been talking for quite a while and some people needed to pee.
Tom needed a piss.
I did.
He took
sorry.
a whiz.
Yeah,
No,
It's
I'm
my
not.
bad. We were drinking alcohol. I broke the seal. I clubbed it to death. No,
I-
wait, that's animal
wait.
abuse. I don't want to do that.
God damn it.
Tom
but,
and his week-long piss.
but yeah, I mean, what we ended on Kickstarters last time.
Yeah, we were talking about
talking
Kickstarters.
and that sort of thing, and we thought we'd start this time with well, we didn't really touch on it the first time. What exactly is an indie game?
yeah, like kind of what we associate with them
Yeah.
before, kind of pre-Minecraft and post-Minecraft. What are the kind of things we associate with
Because
sort of the
no
phrase indie game?
budget, non-corporate, sort of cheaply made.
Yeah, but like, is indie games like indie? Does it mean it's independently developed, independently published? What does it mean? Like, what would you class as an indie game?
My personal actual definition, I think, is I think it's everything. It's independently developed and published. But if a game is independently developed, then that is good enough for me to call it an indie game. Sometimes people need help with publishing through other sources like Valve or there's even been times with Warner Brothers or EA even have helped in a couple of instances
Yeah.
with the publishing factor. I don't think that should stop it. I don't think that stops it being an indie game because it was developed by by definition it was developed.
Yeah, does the publisher have any say as to what goes into the game?
I think it depends kind of when they jump in, because I wanted to talk about a game I've very much enjoyed playing.
You're not allowed, sorry. Okay, I should realize you can.
Fuck you, it's not just your podcast.
This is independently done, okay?
Yeah,
Fuck you.
yeah. We ain't funded, unfortunately. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the game Bastion, because I have this discussion with quite a few people I know who have also played the game, also enjoyed it, as to whether or not
That's
it's...
none of us, by the way.
No, you
Yeah.
all suck balls.
To be fair, I've played it for 2 minutes.
I've never heard
that's,
of it.
that's great.
I
thank
I
you.
have it.
I have
installed
it.
on my PC.
What the
That's
hell is
part
it?
of them.
Okay, so basically, anyway, for everybody who's listening who may have played Bastion, which is probably as little as in this room, basically, as far as I know of the game, it's a great game. It's got its own unique art style, unique narration, unique kind of story decisions, all that kind of thing. But where it comes to blurring the line between indie game or not is it appears it was independently developed and influenced by nothing particularly outside, but it was published by Warner Brothers. And I have the discussion often with a friend who says that makes it not an indie game because even though it was independently made, developed, everything was made separately. Because it's published by a big company, that makes it not exactly a AAA game or anything, but it takes it away from being an indie game.
That sort of brings up the idea of any arcade game could be an indie game in theory. Like, I mean, sure, on Xbox you've got the indie arcade, but then you've also got Xbox Live Arcade, which is decent titles at a budget cost and that sort of thing. So looking at things like Twisted Pixel do Explosion Man, Miss Explosion Man, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Are they indie games? Do they? I mean, that sort of thing. Or like Trials. Trials, the original one was released by Red Links. It was developed and released by the same company.
Yeah.
But the second one was halfway through development. They were bought out by Ubisoft. So they were then put to a point where they were,
Corporate.
they were incorporated into Ubisoft and that sort of thing. And Trials Fusion, which is the new one coming out now, is a disc-based game of Trials, and it's going to be like £45. It's a full AAA disc title. I mean, obviously, there's got to be something to do with Ubisoft in there
Yeah.
for them to do that. So it's gone from being indie was then that sort of thing. Like, is that midpoint? Is Trials Evolution? Is that an indie game because it was developed and about 2 months before it was released, everyone was like, oh, by the way, we got bought out by Ubisoft. So now on the opening thing is like Red Link's a Ubisoft game, So
Yeah.
it's just like it's very very sort of blurred lines to coin a
I don't have a
controversial
problem
song.
with big companies picking up these indie games as long as they don't really
Rinse
if it
them.
yeah, as long as they don't have much say in it. If they're just publishing the game, then fair
Yeah.
enough. I have no problem. I mean, wasn't that the what was it? Armor 2. There was the mods. Just some random,
DayZ.
yeah, Daisy, some random guy in his bedroom made a mod, and now it's turned into a full blown game.
So that's Bohemia
Yeah.
Interactive, isn't it?
Yeah,
Bohemia
it is.
do.
It is. I'll move on to another example of this afterwards, but it's the kind of ideal goal where a modder makes an incredibly popular mod and it gets picked up by none other than, they go through all the AAA, the big developers. It actually gets picked up by the source developer of the original game,
Yeah.
who go, you know, Rocket got so many copies of Armor 2 and Operation Arrowhead sold so people could play DayZ. They kind of go, you know what? We got so much money from this. We're gonna help you develop this game. We're gonna give you our dev team that you've worked with
Yeah.
previously when you worked for the company, this and that. And that, I think, in many ways, DayZ was kind of one of the ultimate success stories of indie development and mod
Yeah.
development, because the mod got picked up by the same people whose game it was based on, and they've completely taken care of it. They've devoted like all their resources to it because they realize how much he's done for them and how much he can do for them. Um,
But like, do you reckon he had complete creative freedom, or do you reckon he was like the head? He was like, oh, I want. I'm thinking about this. Obviously, he was there programming it as well.
yeah.
But do you reckon he was the guy who was like, I want this. Like, this is my vision. Make it happen, sort of thing. Do you
I
reckon
don't
it
think
was?
it's moved on too far from what the mod originally
Yeah,
was,
I think
has it?
he's still very much in control because, fair enough, Bohemia have made, their money back from all the weird simulator games they make and the Armour games, but I wouldn't call them, a big AAA dev. So
No.
I think they're definitely more than willing to leave him in control because they know the reason it got popular is his ideas and input. They're not going to mess with that
Yeah,
because it just seems better to them. We'll let him do his thing. We'll keep helping him.
they made Armor 2 and it sold however many copies, not very many, on like a grand scale. And then all of a sudden, this one guy made DayZ and it sold millions. Why are they going to then say, okay, well, no, you can work for us, but we're still going to be in charge, when he's clearly the reason that they sold so many copies in the first place? It was all of his initiative, his insight, his vision that created it.
But does that make Daisy an independent game because it was made independently by a guy who was brought in because of the mod? Like, it's been published, it's been developed by a company, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So it's just like, does that make it an independent title, or does that
I
make
don't
it?
see it as an indie game anymore. What is it, like £20?
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
I would say it was based on an indie game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now because it did so well as an indie game, well, as an indie mod, I should say, it's been excelled into, like you said, not a triple A, but it's higher than an indie game now. It's had the money put behind it, the development teams put behind it
Yeah.
to make sure that it succeeds. So it's and I think that's like something that a lot of indie developers and indie games should be able to get, sort of, if they get that big. It'd be nice if they did get picked up and get given the funding and the teams to either remake or improve on their games.
yeah, I mean, they did put, from their flagship product, Bohemia, is Armour, and they got a lot of people from the Armour 3 dev team, the Armour 2 dev team, and put them behind that game. So that's how you know they care. I think, as Wayne said, originally it started as indie because it's just a mod that, a few people are doing or one guy's doing, came up with the idea. But I think it has moved to an ideal stage where a lot of indie games aspire to be, and a lot of indie devs aspire to be, but a lot of the time they will just jump at, oh, EA's offered us a contract, and then they'll kind of jump into making subpar games for a big name company or whatever for a long time, and we see a fair amount of that. Somebody makes something big, it gets picked up by a publisher, and then not you don't really hear anything else from them. You say they kind of have the big name credit behind the first game they try and release or whatever like that, but after that you kind of lose them a bit. And one other example, kind of similar to DayZ but a lot older, I wanted to talk about was Gary's mod, because
Yeah.
the original Gary's mod was, as the name implies, a mod of Half-Life. You couldn't do much in it. It was more kind of one guy going, well, I like the physics they've implemented in the Source engine in Half-Life 2.
I bet you
Let's
I
make
know.
a few things
Bet I
different
can guess
around
his
with it.
name.
It's It's Dave.
Derek. Yeah.
Close, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, damn it.
Dave made Gary's Mod. No, and
It's actually Jeff. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
God damn it! How does he know these things? We try and hide the truth. But yeah, Gary's Mod. Again, I played it back when it was still Gary's Mod 9, which was a free mod you could download for Half-Life 2 or any of the Source games.
Yeah.
And that was another case of Valve in this case looked at his mod and they said, a lot of people are playing that. Would you like us to kind of publish a standalone version? He said, yeah, sure. And now we have, I think it's technically Gary's Mod 13 or 14, the current iteration, but basically it came out as a standalone as quote-unquote Gmod 10, which is updated and improved.
Yeah.
And that was like another very early success story of a modder who's put so much dedication into a game and given like a completely different aspect to a game, new life, that people have gone, yeah, we want that. And the publisher's gone, fair enough, we'll give this guy a job. I mean, I know Valve has a big record of hiring like community people and people whose mods and work they enjoy. But that just sticks out to me because especially the maybe sort of 600 hours or so I've put into that game since it came out as Gmod 10 over like 2 different Steam accounts.
I feel like with that sort of game though, it's just the freedom that you have with it is it's good because it allows you to create games within games, so to speak.
Absolutely. It was like sub-modded. There's so many different game modes. Some of them, with each update, they get included as base game modes and base maps and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my first proper experience with Gmod was when I loaded it up to play a game and I made a rocket-propelled sofa, and the video that came of that is just of me not being able to control anything and just flying through the air.
There's a bit of man screaming. I think. A bit of man
screaming. But so that will go into a montage, I suppose, somewhere.
Yeah, it'd be good.
We set into a montage because we have enough video to do that anyway.
Yeah, maybe we'll tack it on to the beginning of any Gmod videos we do in the near future.
But I think the whole thing with indie though is a lot of people that pitch ideas that don't get made because they're too risky.
Yeah.
Because you look at a game like Minecraft before it came out. If someone came up to you and was like, I want to make a game, right? Hear me out. I want to make a game. It's a game where you mine the materials to build things. That's it. And the graphical style is like really, really old school, like 16-bit but blocks. So it's like 3D but 16-bit. You just look at that person, you'd be like, no, that doesn't sound like a good idea.
Yeah.
But then when you've got like indie, they have the chance to actually make that themselves, and they have the chance to, go out there and say, this is my game. I've published it myself. Yeah, sure, they won't. It won't be as expensive. But the thing is, the reason it's not expensive is because they're not going through publishers like EA and Ubisoft and Activision, those sort of things. If they got hold of that kind of game, it would be much more expensive to begin with because they've got to recoup their cost for publishing the game, and then the other guys have got to, so it would be like the £12 for the game, but there would also be another £6-7 per copy for each, for publishing costs and that sort of thing, and marketing.
Yeah, like the DRM cost.
Exactly. So it's just like, it feels like indie makes things more accessible, makes things easier on the pocket of the person who publishes it anyway. So people choose to indie develop now because, first of all, it's games that a lot of teams probably won't take very big risks on, but it's also a case of the money that, a lot of the money gets directly sent back to them. I remember Wayne telling me a story about a team that said, oh, you can buy this game, it's the same price on the website and the Steam, but if you buy it on Steam, Valve gets like $2 per something, but if you buy it direct from us, we get all the money and it helps us develop the game.
I think Starforge did that last summer, I think, when I first bought it. They said, same price on site as Steam, except we'll get all of the money rather than nearly all of it. Which, fair enough, because Steam are auto-updating it, they're publishing it, they're bringing you the news feed of it, automatic patches, everything like that.
I think, to be honest, it's a case of like a lot of things need to be done through Steam as well, because first of all, it's publicity. Steam is a big name, and if a big name backs a game, then that's positive to start with. But the thing is, if it was bought straight from like Starforge, if it was everybody bought it straight from the website and not Steam, then Steam wouldn't support it because they're not getting them any money for it. So then that would be a problem. But if so it's like a case of, I think the people who made Star Forge probably wanted a 50-50 split because then they would support the Steam publishing it, marketing it, it would be that sort of thing, and then they would have their own money. They'd get a little bit extra from the
Yeah.
website sales.
One interesting thing I have noticed a lot within the last few months is every time Steam, I think we've talked about this before, we don't exactly know what the process is with Steam sales, how it works. Do they say, we want to put your game on this discount, we'll still do the percentages the same, whatever. But a lot of the times Steam will put a sale up on an indie game or a relatively small game,
Yeah.
even if it's not like directly indie published or whatever. Their site or their small publisher site will go, we'll do the same thing but with no DRM, same price. So you can transfer it to multiple computers easier. You can do whatever you do with the DRM free copy.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite good that they're kind of trying to match the crazy deals that Steam have, because it could be making them a loss, but if you think about it, and maybe Valve are taking a certain amount of money, it's still not making them as much of a loss as the Steam sale.
Yeah. I think a lot of the things with the sales in Steam though is they're games that have had their sort of peak, this
Yeah.
peak sales, and they've just gone to a point where, if we put it on sale now, then we might get 1,000 extra sales out of it.
Yeah.
And 1,000 extra sales is 1,000 extra sales the way you look at it. I mean, if you look at it in a way of the peak sales, they've met the costs. They've got that money back. So any other sales there are just profit. So it's like you look at that sort of thing. I'm not. I say we've discussed it before. We're not sure what the idea behind Steam is, how they can do their sales, how they work out the costs of publishing and that sort of thing. But I mean, it also lends itself to the idea of like how do the humble indie bundles make money? Like how do they make their money out of their things? Because I mean,
Well, I think it's clearly displayed how much money they get when you actually purchase the.
yeah, but it's like how much profit do they get? Because if you think about it, yeah, sure, you're giving money to charity. The charity is going to be happy with whatever money. I mean, the EA bundle I think raised over $5 million for.
It's the humble tip.
Yeah, but the humble tip goes to the guys who run the site. But then so basically, for those of you who don't know, the humble bundle is a group of games. You pay whatever you want over $1 for a certain amount of games. Usually about 4, I think,
Yeah.
isn't it? And so this is 4 games, and then it'll be like pay over the average price. So like they'll say, oh, the average price is $4. So if you pay over $4, you get 2 more games. And in that way, if you pay over the odds, then obviously the average will start going up and that sort of thing. But the way it works is that when you pay the money, you split it between the charity or charities, the people who run the site, and the people who made the game. So you split it between the three. And I mean, you got to think that that's a really good idea because it gives money to charity. Makes games more affordable. There's been multiple times where I've bought. I think I've got about 8 or 9 humble bundles now, and I'm proud. But it's just like I feel like where would the profit come from? It when they choose games to go on the humble bundle, because I mean the EA one was like Dead Space 1 and 3, Battlefield, The Sims, those sort of things. All games that like when you go to the shop, The Sims, the starter pack was like it's still like 25-30 pounds, and like Battlefield is still £25 on Origin, that sort of thing. It's like
You have
where
to
do
think
they-
about online sales as well. For example, I'm like you. I've got a whole bunch of humble bundles as well, but a lot of those a lot of those games that I have from them, I would never have purchased if it wasn't for the humble bundle. So they acquired some money out of me, whereas they typically wouldn't have if there was no humble bundle.
I suppose do you reckon there's like an allocation of things because I mean they do like Steam keys now, don't they?
But
Well, they
like,
always have done, but
what are you asking? Are you asking where do the developers get the profit?
like no, like well, not where do they get the profit, but like do they get a profit out of a humble bundle?
I think they
I-
leave it until there's no profit left in.
I don't think they do. Like I think they get whatever is given to them, but the humble bundle doesn't like the way it works is they donate their games.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is down to that though. But like, do they? A lot of do you reckon? Do you reckon it is what Matt says? Like, they've sort of reached the end of their sales cycle, like their peak sales cycle. So they put a bunch of games, like one big game that everybody will want is in the above average section. People will
Yeah.
buy it, but then they'll get all these other games that they haven't seen before, they haven't played before, that they might be interested in.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, exposure.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
I
I was
mean,
gonna say, like, there's the old saying, no bad publicity is still good publicity kind of thing. You know, you're still, even though you're selling your game for dirt cheap, maybe
Dirt cheap is
maybe
better than not
yeah,
selling the game
because
at all.
you're getting, maybe your publisher name or the game name, which you may make some kind of sequel to, or some kind
Yeah.
of little tiny DLC that costs an extra pound or whatever.
Hmm.
There's a few games I got from very early kind of humble bundles that when I see something about a developer, I'm at least interested.
Yeah.
Or if it mentions, oh, they did this, or it's a sequel to this game, I'm definitely interested. It's kind of like almost, if it's an incredibly small game to start with, they weren't going to have a massive amount of sales, and if they've already peaked their sales, they're probably not going to complain at like any money they can make at all. So
Yeah, I
it's
suppose
just
so.
kind of getting another way. It's almost like the equivalent of making contacts.
Yeah.
They're getting their name out there to everybody and saying, "We've got this game. Like, you got this one for dirt cheap. Would you be interested in buying one of our full games for maybe an extra few dollars?" And people go,
Actually,
"Yeah, maybe I
yeah.
will. That's
Yeah.
a good
Also,
idea."
another thing I noticed as well, they're also preparing the audience or the buyers or the gamers for future releases. For example, right now you got Civilization on the Humble Bundle,
Yeah.
so you give the player base a chance to actually try Civilization for dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And if they like it, there's a good chance
That's
that
the
when the
new
new
one.
one comes out, there you go.
Yeah.
They're into it already. They have the previous games. They played them. They liked them, and they got they wait in anticipation for the new one.
Yeah. We've just dated the podcast slightly here as well.
A little
Yeah.
bit, yeah.
But but it's I understand. Like I've noticed recently a lot of the weekly sales have been like specific developers. So it'd be like, oh, you like The Binding of Isaac, why won't you like any of these games by the same publisher? And then you play those games, it's like, wow, this publisher has a long list of really good games. When the next one comes out, you'd be like, oh, actually, might be worth it, or when they
Yeah.
if they do something else where they're just like um early access, you'd be like, oh, actually, because if I don't know if you noticed, but when Daisy the standalone came along, there was a humble Bohemia bundle where it
Yeah.
was Armor and Armor 2, and it was the
Yep.
original Daisy mod, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that was a very good marketing ploy because they like, well, all these games, if you quite enjoyed these games, which is another game we've got,
Yeah.
just over here, just like if you look at
Yeah,
it.
it just costs a little bit more. And people are like £20. Ooh, and then they play a bit of Daisy like £20. I'll happily pay that to die
Exactly.
repeatedly.
I mean, and at the end of the day,
Kill
it's only
me.
going to go up in price anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, because of early access.
to talk about early access, that is another thing that these days is massively associated with the term indie game or anything
Yeah.
because of, again, I think Minecraft being one of the big ones that started the kind of in-dev access thing where the game has slowly got to
Bless you.
quote
Excuse me.
bless you, to quote unquote completion before before everybody's on board. So you kind of, most people will probably buy it into early to mid beta phase.
Yeah.
Some people will buy alpha. A lot of games are going straight in with very early alpha these days. Like Starforge, which I mentioned earlier, is in very early alpha,
Yeah.
and a lot of them tend to be the kind of sandbox survival style games because they're becoming quite popular, and they still are. After the last couple of years, if Minecraft keeps going.
There's a couple more now, like Rust and things
Yeah.
like that coming out.
Very
But
good game, Rust, by the way.
Is it?
yeah, it looks very good, and also it's a lot of people say it's Minecraft mixed with Daisy, blah blah blah. Those people haven't heard of goddamn Gmod Survival. It's the same developers, Facepunch Studios, the same guys behind Gary's Mod,
Yeah.
and it's based on a like sub game mode in Gary's Mod called Gmod Survival, which I've played hundreds of hours of. That's the reason I played most of my Gmod hours, that game mode. And dear God, it was fun. And the fact they've almost made a standalone game of that is like, I have to admire it because it's just like a small mod within a mod that a few hundred people played, and now it's its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that DayZ, the idea of that game could have come from Gmod Survival.
Yeah, Gmod Survival was doing a lot of different aspects and had the groundwork for ideas that never quite got finished because it was, kind of mod within a mod, a game mode thing that people were working on in their own time. They had to give up eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gmod Survival was definitely way ahead of a lot of this kind of survival fandom thing that's been going on at the moment.
It just wasn't very publicized or very known.
Yeah, because it was like in Gmod itself, it wasn't one of the main game modes. It was kind of obscure. You had to sit there and find a server, download the map, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's interesting to see that like companies are looking to take more risks because they've seen the success
Success.
of like mods and indie games, that sort of thing. And I think to be honest, becoming to sort of a revolution of gaming because a lot more people are taking the time to notice the indie games. So a lot of companies are going to be more willing to sit there and go, actually, you know what, this
They're not
game
gonna
does
just
actually look
shrug an indie game off now. It's
exactly.
like maybe
Yeah.
we will actually hear this guy out.
Exactly. So it looks like, I've always complained that the last sort of decade or so, we've had like 8 Call of Duty games, there's been 7 Halo games, I mean, nobody's really taking a massive risk, and it's like with games like Brink, I thought Brink was a really good game, but nobody played it. Like it was a case of like Bethesda took a risk, and all of a sudden everybody was like, actually no.
Yeah.
I actually own that game on Xbox and on PC, and I liked that game, and just nobody plays it online anymore. So it's just not fun because you're playing against computer players, which they tone down the AI because they want you to play online. So
Yeah.
it's a bit difficult, that sort of thing. So I mean, that was. You look at that sort of game and you think, oh, they take risks and it doesn't pay off, then they're going to lose a lot of money. But then with indie games showing that risks, although they can backfire completely, they can go very well. I
Yeah.
mean, look at DayZ's now its own standalone thing. Rust is based on a Gary's mod,
Yeah.
which is it's ridiculous when you think about it. It's a mod within a mod. And it's just like you look at things like that and you think everybody's too worried that the risk isn't going to pay off. But if you look at it, without risk, there's no reward. If you take a risk and it doesn't pay off, you've lost a lot of money. But if you take a risk and it pays off, you make something new. It
Yeah.
could be one of the most popular games ever, and it could make you that money
Yeah.
back
It,
plus
it,
whatever.
it could be
you
like
recoup.
genre defining, even industry defining.
Exactly.
And what's sad is that it's these industries that have is multi-million, multi-billion-dollar corporate companies that easily have the money to develop something that could fail and it not really affect their budget, that are too scared to do it. And then these indie developers coming along with no money, just putting everything they have into it, all their time, that are taking the risks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just like I think. Don't get me wrong, the tried and tested formula, fair enough. Like, go with it. Battlefield is a decent game, and when it comes, I'll continue to play Battlefield 4.
Yeah.
Halo, as much as I said, there's been like 6 or 7 of them. The core Halo games, I like quite a lot. I'm quite a big fan of them. But occasionally it's nice to see someone take a risk that they haven't seen very often. I mean, if you look at Bethesda, they make the Elder Scrolls games. They took Fallout and they completely changed the formula. Like people were looking forward to a new Fallout, and then they were like, "Oh, by the way, it's now going to be a first-person shooter," and everyone's just like, "What the fuck are you doing? That's never going to work." And look at it; it's
It
one
was
of the,
beautiful.
it was a fantastic game, and it's just like they took on Dishonored, which looks like a game that in theory shouldn't work very well. It's like a steampunk old-style game with magic
Yeah,
and
like
stuff.
first person magic hitman.
Killer assassin.
And you
thing.
know what? Brilliant game. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. And so companies like Bethesda, they do the Elder Scrolls games, but they're sort of like a tried and tested formula or something. But they also take risks every now and then. They'll be like, "Oh, we'll
it
do
kind
this."
of comes down to innovation, and it's strange that companies could, the big companies could set up a small dev team and say, "No, you've got a couple of years, see what you come up with."
Yeah, just like brainstorm.
Yeah, but in indie developers in particular, they'll sit there and go, "Well, this is our idea. We've wanted to make this for like 10 years. Let's all remortgage our houses and do it." And they do it. They make
Yeah.
a lot of money, and some of the bigger companies are going, ah. And then I think I understand why a lot of indie games approach big companies for publishing, because it's the way of the companies haven't taken as much of the risk financially.
Yeah.
They're not putting all their money behind it, just the publishing money.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is quite a different cost. They're not funding the dev team the entire time. They're not paying all the bills, that kind
Plus,
of
they
thing.
can see the product
Yeah,
beforehand.
exactly. They probably
can-
get a look at the near finished, if not finished product.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just like it's just like I think that with indie games, it's we say we continue to sing their praises all the time because people remortgage their house and that sort of thing to pay to build these games, but sometimes it backfires and they have issues and that sort of thing, and it's sad when that happens. Don't get me wrong. it's just like you can't. There are some things that you just can't help. There are problems. People. The whole point of taking risk is, if it doesn't work, then you've lost quite a lot.
Yeah.
If it does work, then you've gained much more.
Yeah.
Sometimes the risk can outweigh what the problem. The reward would outweigh the risk
Yeah.
basically. The
Yeah.
factor is, and it's just like, there's in a world that's oversaturated with games that just aren't innovative. You look at a game like that, it is, like an indie game,
Yeah.
Bastion. You look at games like Retro City Rampage, which is like a throwback to old GTA games,
Yeah.
but they've sort of brought it into the 21st century, and it's just like it's like a breath of fresh air, showing you that there is still some creative mind in there somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say
trying.
the kind of a lot of ideas in the industry have stagnated over the past several years, and a lot of games they fail because they try to innovate for innovation's sake, whereas the kind of the indie market's going to innovate in the way that they want to, not because it's like, oh, we've got this other game, we'll now make it this genre, and everywhere is nah. Whereas they're going, we don't have a game, this is our game. If people go, I like this game, this is good. So
Yeah.
it's not innovation for the sake of innovation. N- I can't think of any ideas where it's properly worked. Whereas something that just happens to be innovative or a new spin on something will do a lot better.
Yeah. I mean,
I was just gonna say, sort of touching upon that, you might find that the bigger publishers beforehand, if you're working alongside them, might, because they're gonna have a lot of control over you at that beforehand point. They could tell you, we don't want you to go this way round, we want you to go this way and do this. So I've actually heard stories of people um pulling out. Sorry. But just
I bet
so
you
that
have.
they can hold on to the creative control, even if it means, like you said, putting their um, houses, on risking their mortgages and whatnot, to fund these projects. And I say, fair game to them, for trying to hold on to that creative control, because obviously the publishers, um, with the publishers taking control, it's gonna just I guess like a big name, they want a game a certain way. For example, you work alongside the guys who made Call of Duty. They know a game, that game works a specific way. They might find that your first person shooter or whatever, they want the same sort of elements, whereas
Yeah.
you might be trying to pitch something else to them, but they're just trying to go with the same thing that works.
mechanics that they're used to.
Right.
I think, to be honest, we're pretty much coming to a full circle here, like going back to where we started.
Yeah.
But I want to end with the idea that, if you, let's say, we spoke about on, I think it was the last one, was about the Mighty Number Nine with the guy who made Mega Man.
Yeah.
Do you think a name like that really puts a lot of publicity behind a game itself? Like, if he was to say, "Oh, by the way, I'm making a game where the whole thing is about dick slapping people," like, it sounds like a completely random game, but somebody who made is like one of the famous names behind,
Yeah.
I don't know, like Fallout, was just like, "Yeah, I'm making a game about dick slapping people." Would not be like a would you be more inclined to play it because it's somebody that you played the games of before, that you enjoyed, even though it sounds like a completely far-fetched, stupid idea that in theory should never be played, and in fact it probably will be a whole load of poo. But I mean, would it get more positive publicity because of the person behind it?
The name can carry some weight, but if
it
it's a
can be
game about dip
backlash
slapping,
also.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh,
You will always have fan loyalty.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is like but like, it's not even just brand loyalty. Like, I mean, I never had a Nintendo growing up, so Mega Man wasn't really something that I played. But it's just a case of like, just the name. I think it's Keiji Inafune who made the Mega Man games, and you know, hearing about that and that sort of thing, and he's making a new game in the vein of Mega Man, that sort of thing. I'm interested because he's made very critically acclaimed games, and he's doing something in that same genre. I mean, I doubt
but in the
the
wrong
dick
decade.
slapping game is going to be in the same free roam as Fallout.
Probably not.
No, just free roaming, free roaming with your dick out.
There's probably a mod for that in Fallout.
I'm
anyway.
pretty sure it's just Postal, but that's not
Yeah.
the point. Like, yeah, it's just like, I apologize to the people listening that this is such a random, like, it was literally the first thing that came into my head, and it's just, I don't understand
Dick
why that was
slapping.
dick slapping,
Of
and
course.
I tried to come up with the most ridiculous thing ever, and dick slapping was
Ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, but like yeah, so I mean, it's just a case of like yeah, do you think that yeah, it's like if there's a guy you haven't played all of the games before, but his games have got critical acclaim, and he's making another one in the same genre, would you be more interested in playing that sort of game?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something to consider, like in a personal opinion, and sort of when you look at the masses, what they're funding, what they're not backing, that kind of thing. Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't simply just take with their word for it. That's the beauty of Kickstarter. Typically, they have some artwork for you. They have some sort of video, something for you to see and to invest in.
That's exactly they have like stretch goals as well. Like
Right.
with the Mighty Number Nine, the stretch goals were they met. The last one was it's coming to Xbox One and PS4 now as a, but it's going to be published by him. Like he's just publishing it himself, so it's going to be an indie game. So yeah, I mean,
At the very least, I'd want some sort of artwork.
there's a whole book of it online if you want to look for it. But yeah, on that note, guys, have you got any other final thoughts that you want to add to it?
No, I think we have talked about quite a few different aspects of indie development, indie games, AAA development. I think we've covered good ground.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Wayne is falling asleep.
Yeah, Wayne's actually. You got any final thoughts, Wayne, or is it just yeah?
My final thought is that it's half 12 and I've been up for almost 3 4 hours.
Staring down forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gay. Mass? Anything
No,
else? No?
that's it. I think we should. I think we
yeah.
can leave it there.
Yeah, I think we've
Okay.
come to a good point, and yeah, I mean, this is the IndieCast that we've been wanting to do for a while, and we hope you enjoyed it. I mean, we've enjoyed talking about it. It's probably is
definitely.
about double the amount that you've enjoyed listening to it, but
Yeah.
We'll see.
yeah, we'll see.
I think
yeah.
time for the Beefy cast to pull out.
Yeah, just get our sandwich.
Too late
Yeah.
for a wage.
Just like
I see
yeah.
what you did there.
as always, guys, any feedback you have is always appreciated, and we hope you enjoyed it and that you will listen to more of our subcasts because I mean, yeah, we enjoy doing them. If you enjoy listening to them,
Yeah.
then we'll carry on going.
Yeah. And I think it's overrun just a little bit, but it's better to pull out late than not at all, right?
Exactly. Wise words from a wise man. All right,
But,
thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
You're so gay.
Dex.